At first, it looked like a choice. Families pulling away from friends, routines, and society itself, guided by beliefs few questioned at the time. But when entire households vanished without warning, investigators were left asking whether faith, isolation, or control had crossed a dangerous line. Let's uncover. They joined a hidden group. Then, their entire family disappeared. Story 1. In 2009, a family living in rural Oklahoma began withdrawing from the world around them. Conversations with friends grew tense, fear replaced familiarity, and the family became increasingly focused on unseen threats they believed surrounded them. Soon after seeking help from a small circle outside their normal lives, the entire family vanished, leaving behind a scene that continues to raise unsettling questions. Bobby Jamison, 44, lived with his wife, Sherilyn Jamison, 40, and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, in Eufaula, Oklahoma. Bobby worked as a contractor and was described as practical but increasingly anxious in the months before the disappearance. Sherilyn was creative, spiritual, and deeply protective of her daughter. Madison was a cheerful child who shared a close bond with both parents. Friends later said the Jamisons became involved in a small, informal belief circle centered around spiritual protection and fear of external harm. This involvement appeared to intensify the family's isolation rather than ease their concerns. In the months leading up to October 2009, Bobby and Sherilyn expressed growing fear about their home. They spoke to a local pastor, sharing concerns that dark spirits had entered the house. This fear escalated after Madison began talking about an imaginary friend named Emily, whom Sherilyn believed was something more sinister. According to the pastor, Bobby once asked if there were special bullets that could be used to protect the family from what he believed were unseen entities around the home. Bobby had also purchased religious texts, believing they might help cleanse the house. These statements were later described as expressions of fear rather than plans of harm. A close friend later told police that she occasionally participated in informal spiritual sessions with Sherilyn, though she said Sherilyn took them far more seriously. Sherilyn also wrote messages on a storage container about her belief that neighborhood interference had harmed her pets. Friends noted that her fear of outside forces had grown intense. On October 8, 2009, the Jamison family left their home, reportedly to view rural land near Red Oak, Oklahoma. Days later, their pickup truck was found abandoned in Latimer County, Oklahoma. Inside were their wallets, phones, identification, their dog, alive but dehydrated, and approximately $32,000 in cash. Surveillance footage earlier that day showed the family appearing calm, but they were never seen again. Extensive searches of the surrounding wilderness revealed no immediate trace of the family. Investigators found no evidence of criminal involvement or outside coercion. Over time, theories focused on disorientation, environmental exposure, or the possibility that fear-driven decisions led them into dangerous terrain. Authorities have never confirmed involvement of any organization or group. In November 2013, skeletal remains of 2 adults and 1 child were discovered by 2 hunters, presumed to be the remains of the Jamison family. The Oklahoma Medical Examiner's Office confirmed it on July 3, 2014. The remains were found several miles from the truck, but the cause of death could not be determined due to the state of the bodies. Friends and relatives struggled to reconcile the family they knew with the fears that overtook them. Some recalled feeling uneasy in the Jamison home, describing a heavy emotional atmosphere, while others emphasized that the family was overwhelmed rather than malicious. Many theories emerged and claimed that Bobby had allegedly read diabolical books before their disappearance. Without clear answers, their disappearance remains deeply painful. Did fear and isolation influence decisions that placed the Jamison family in danger? Could earlier support have changed the path that led to their disappearance? Story 2. In February 2010, a family living quietly in Southern California vanished without warning. There were no urgent messages and no explanation. At first, investigators believed the family may have chosen to disappear, possibly stepping away from their lives entirely. But years later, the truth would prove far more complex. Joseph McStay, 40, lived with his wife, Summer McStay, 43, and their 2 young sons, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joseph Jr. The family once lived near the coast in San Clemente, California, where they enjoyed surfing, biking, and spending time together by the beach. Friends described Joseph and Summer as deeply devoted to one another and fiercely protective of their children. As their family grew, they moved inland to Fallbrook, California, purchasing a home and beginning renovations. Outwardly, the future seemed hopeful. Privately, Joseph faced mounting stress related to his decorative fountain business. The family had also explored alternative lifestyle ideas centered on independence and simplifying life, interests that later fueled speculation about their sudden disappearance. On February 4, 2010, the McStay family vanished from their Fallbrook home. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle. Food was left behind, and the family's dogs were found wandering outside. Days later, Joseph's white Isuzu Trooper was discovered abandoned near the U.S.-Mexico border. Surveillance footage soon emerged, showing what appeared to be a family of 4 crossing into Mexico on foot that same day. With no contact from the family and no financial activity, authorities began to believe the McStays may have left voluntarily. For nearly 4 years, there were no confirmed sightings. At first, investigators believed the McStay family had chosen to disappear. With no signs of violence and evidence suggesting a deliberate border crossing, the theory gained momentum. Some speculated the family may have been seeking a complete break from their former lives, possibly drawn toward a quiet, off-grid, or hidden community where they believed they could start over, free from financial pressure. That belief shaped the investigation for years, until November 2013, when a motorcyclist discovered a small skull in the Mojave Desert near Victorville, California. A search uncovered 4 sets of remains in shallow graves, later identified as the McStay family. A sledgehammer was found buried nearby. Attention shifted to Charles Chase Merritt, a business associate of Joseph's. Merritt had publicly supported efforts to find the family and once stated he was most definitely the last person to see Joseph. Prosecutors alleged Merritt owed Joseph money, had written himself checks dated the day of the disappearance, and that his phone pinged a cell tower near the burial site days later. Merritt was arrested and later convicted. For relatives, the early belief that the McStays had chosen to disappear was deeply painful. Years passed without answers, leaving loved ones trapped between hope and grief. Even after convictions, many questions remain, and the family continues to be remembered for the life they were building together. What if early assumptions delayed the truth about what happened to the McStay family? Could critical warning signs have been missed before they vanished? Story 3. For years, the Hart family lived largely out of sight. They traveled often, avoided close scrutiny, and spoke openly about a belief system that shaped how they raised their children. To outsiders, it looked unconventional, but harmless. It wasn't until the family vanished all at once that authorities began to question how isolation, ideology, and control may have quietly taken hold. Jennifer Hart and Sarah Hart were a married couple who adopted 6 children: Sierra, 12, Abigail, 14, Jeremiah, 14, Devontae, 15, Hannah, 16, and Marcus, 19, over several years. The children came from different backgrounds and were adopted across multiple states. Publicly, the Harts presented themselves as devoted parents who promoted messages of equality, discipline, and family unity. On social media, the family appeared tightly bonded. Posts showed road trips, outdoor activities, and carefully curated moments of togetherness. Friends and followers often praised their parenting, while the family described their lifestyle as intentional and values-driven. Privately, however, concerns had been raised over time. Teachers, neighbors, and child welfare agencies in multiple states reported worrying patterns, including social isolation, strict control, and limited access to outside support. In early 2018, the Hart family stopped responding to messages from friends and acquaintances. Shortly afterward, authorities received a welfare check request at a home in Washington state where the family had been living. When officers arrived, the house appeared abandoned. Days later, a vehicle registered to the family was discovered at the base of a remote cliff in Northern California. All 8 members of the Hart family were missing. The discovery immediately triggered a large-scale investigation involving multiple agencies. As search efforts continued, it became clear that the family had been traveling extensively in the weeks prior, staying in campgrounds and remote locations. Their movements suggested deliberate withdrawal from normal routines. Investigators eventually concluded that the family's disappearance was not accidental. Evidence recovered at the scene indicated the vehicle had gone over the cliff intentionally. As authorities examined the family's history, they focused on the belief system that governed daily life inside the Hart household. The parents promoted strict obedience, separation from outside influences, and total family loyalty. Former acquaintances later said the children were increasingly isolated and discouraged from forming independent connections. While the family was not part of a formal organization, investigators determined that their worldview functioned much like a closed belief system, one that went largely unquestioned until it was too late. Extended relatives of the children expressed heartbreak and frustration, stating that repeated warnings had not been acted on quickly enough. Advocacy groups later cited the case as a painful example of how isolation can hide harm behind carefully managed appearances. The Hart children are now remembered not for the beliefs imposed on them, but for the lives they were never given the chance to fully live. What if isolation masked warning signs that should have demanded intervention sooner? How many concerns go unnoticed when belief systems are never questioned? Story 4. In the summer of 2018, a quiet neighborhood in northern Delhi awoke to a scene that stunned the nation. An entire family living under one roof had suddenly vanished from everyday life, leaving behind unanswered questions and a chilling silence. What investigators uncovered would point not to strangers or outside threats, but to a belief system that had quietly taken control inside the home. The Chundawat family lived in a 3-story house in Burari, a residential area of Delhi. The household consisted of 11 members spanning 3 generations, including grandparents, adult siblings, and children. The family ran a small grocery business and plywood business was generally regarded as disciplined, close-knit, and deeply religious. Neighbors described the family as polite but private. Over time, they became increasingly inward-focused, relying on one another for guidance and rarely discussing personal matters with outsiders. Religious observance played a central role in daily life, and the family placed great importance on obedience, order, and tradition. On July 1, 2018, neighbors noticed that the family shop had not opened as usual. Concerned relatives entered the house and discovered a disturbing scene. The family was nowhere to be found in their normal routines, and the home appeared sealed off from the outside world. Inside, investigators found signs that suggested careful planning rather than chaos. Personal belongings were undisturbed, valuables were left behind, and the household appeared orderly. What stood out most was a series of handwritten notes found in the home, detailing strict instructions that governed the family's behavior and daily rituals. The family had effectively removed themselves from normal society, following rules that outsiders had never seen. As authorities examined the notes, they concluded that the family had been following a shared belief system centered on spiritual guidance and obedience. The writing suggested that one family member believed he was receiving instructions from a deceased relative whom he considered a guiding presence. Investigators determined that the family believed these rituals would lead to protection and salvation. The belief system had developed internally without oversight or intervention, functioning much like a closed group that discouraged questioning. There was no evidence of outside involvement or coercion. Instead, authorities concluded that the family's complete trust in these beliefs led them to isolate themselves from rational intervention, ultimately resulting in their disappearance from normal life as the community knew it. The discovery left extended relatives and neighbors grappling with disbelief. Many said they had noticed the family becoming more withdrawn, but never imagined the extent of the control exerted by their shared beliefs. In the aftermath, the case sparked nationwide conversations in India about mental health, unchecked authority within families, and how belief systems can quietly escalate when left unchallenged. The Burari family is remembered not only for the tragedy itself, but as a warning of how isolation can conceal danger behind routine appearances. What if earlier intervention had challenged the beliefs guiding the Burari family? How many warning signs go unnoticed when isolation is mistaken for devotion? Story 5. In April 2011, a middle-class home in the western French city of Nantes became the focus of one of the country's most haunting family disappearances. Neighbors noticed silence behind closed shutters and unanswered messages. What began as concern over a family's sudden absence soon escalated into a case defined by secrecy, belief, and a disappearance that continues to defy resolution. Xavier Pierre-Marie Dupont de Ligonnès was born on January 9, 1961, in Versailles, into a traditionally Catholic family. His professional life was unstable, marked by a series of small business ventures with limited success, including a company called SELREF, whose purpose was vaguely defined. His wife, Agnès Hodanger, born November 9, 1962, worked at a Catholic school in Nantes and taught catechism. She was described as deeply religious, kind, but strict. Together, they raised 4 children: Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit, in a modest home on Boulevard Robert Schumann. Privately, Agnès had expressed concern about her marriage on online forums years earlier, noting troubling statements made by Xavier, including remarks suggesting that a group death within the family would not be catastrophic. In early April 2011, the family abruptly vanished from daily life. The children stopped attending school, and Agnès ceased all communication. On April 13th, a neighbor alerted authorities after noticing the home's blinds had remained closed for days. A formal investigation began on April 19th. On April 21st, police searched the house. Beneath the patio, investigators discovered the bodies of Agnès and the 4 children, along with the family's 2 dogs. The remains were wrapped and concealed beneath the ground, suggesting careful preparation. Autopsies later revealed the deaths occurred between April 3rd and 5th. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès was not present and has never been found. Suspicion quickly focused on Xavier. Investigators determined that in the days leading up to the deaths, he had purchased cement, digging tools, and multiple bags of lime. He also owned a .22 caliber rifle, inherited from his father weeks earlier, had recently purchased ammunition, and had practiced shooting at a local range. Before the family vanished, Xavier told schools and friends conflicting stories, claiming he had been transferred to a job in Australia and, separately, that he was being placed in a witness protection program. Authorities later uncovered his involvement in fundamentalist Catholic online forums, where he discussed sacrifice, destiny, and persecution under multiple identities before being banned. Surveillance footage documented Xavier traveling alone through southern France. His movements ended near Roquebrune-sur-Argens on April 15, 2011. After that, he disappeared. Despite international alerts and reported sightings across Europe, no confirmed trace of Xavier has ever been found. For extended family members, grief has been compounded by the absence of final answers. The uncertainty surrounding Xavier's fate has left the case open-ended, continuing to haunt the public and raising broader questions about isolation, unchecked belief systems, and warning signs missed behind closed doors. Did isolation and belief convince one man that disappearance was the only solution? Is Xavier still alive, or did his story end where the trail went cold? Each of these stories reveals how isolation and unquestioned beliefs can quietly reshape lives until silence is all that remains. Families disappeared, answers faded, and loved ones were left searching for truth that may never fully surface. This is Vanished Stories, where the missing are never forgotten.